Park Tae-jung lived a life so ordinary it seemed invisible to the world. His days were filled with small routines, small joys, and quiet hopes. He delivered packages, smiled at neighbors, cared for the city's elderly, and dreamed of one day opening a small flower cafe, a sanctuary of calm amid the city's relentless chaos. He cherished the simplicity of life, believing that kindness and patience could shield him from the cruelty of the world. Yet, the universe had a different plan. It began on an evening that seemed mundane, a last-minute delivery request, a series of innocuous instructions, a path chosen without suspicion. These minor decisions led him into a trap of terrifying complexity. Every step, every action had been anticipated, monitored, and orchestrated. By dawn, Tae-jung's life had crumbled. Police stormed his apartment, accusations of murder and dismemberment echoed in his ears, and evidence, seemingly irrefutable, painted him as a monster. Witnesses spoke under careful guidance, and media outlets broadcast the story of his alleged crimes. Friends and neighbors recoiled, and the life he knew vanished in an instant. The trial was swift and unyielding. Appeals were ineffective, and despite his pleas of innocence, Tae-jung was convicted. Prison was a world of iron, harsh lights, and unrelenting pressure. He was stripped not only of freedom but of dignity and hope. The ordinary man, whose life had been built on small acts of care and ordinary dreams, was cast into a realm of chaos, violence, and psychological warfare. From the first day, Tae-jung realized survival required more than courage. It required intelligence, perception, and adaptability. He navigated the brutal social hierarchies of prison, learning to read threats, decipher intentions, and endure physical and emotional assaults. In every confrontation, every insult, every attempt to humiliate him, he found lessons. Patterns began to emerge: how guards favored certain prisoners, how rivalries erupted, and how alliances formed and dissolved. Each lesson was a piece of the puzzle. By the second week, he started to anticipate movements before they happened. When a cellmate attempted to provoke him into a fight, he responded with calm precision, deflecting aggression without drawing undue attention. In doing so, he began to build a reputation, not for violence, but for controlled strength. It was during this period that he first heard whispers of Yohan, the man whose influence extended far beyond prison walls. Tae-jung discovered that Yohan's reach was immense. He had orchestrated not only the evidence against him, but also the complex network of events that had led to his imprisonment. Friends, witnesses, even legal authorities had been manipulated. Every detail of Tae-jung's downfall had been engineered with meticulous care. The realization struck like lightning. He was not merely a victim. He was a subject in an elaborate experiment of control and manipulation. This awareness ignited a transformation. Tae-jung understood that his previous life, built on trust and kindness, had left him vulnerable. If he were to survive, he needed more than innocence. He needed intelligence, strategy, and mental fortitude. He began training himself, not in physical strength alone, but in observation, deduction, and understanding human psychology. He studied the habits of guards, the behavior of prisoners, and the reactions of those around him. He learned to interpret subtle cues: a shift in a glance, a hesitation in speech, a gesture that revealed intention. Slowly, fear became a tool, anger a weapon, and patience a method of control. Meanwhile, Yohan watched, unseen but omnipresent, assessing Tae-jung's responses, noting his adaptability, and calculating the potential of this young man who had survived the first week without breaking. Yohan's manipulations were not random. They were precise, crafted to test resilience, mental agility, and moral flexibility. Tae-jung's survival was both a challenge and a revelation. He had endured the first trials, and Yohan recognized him as a unique anomaly, a subject worth observing more closely. As weeks passed, Tae-jung's mastery over his environment deepened. He anticipated conflicts, negotiated subtle alliances, and learned the social hierarchies that dictated survival. In interactions with both allies and adversaries, he began to employ psychological tactics, manipulating perceptions and outcomes without direct confrontation. This strategic approach allowed him to conserve energy, avoid unnecessary risks, and gather information crucial for future confrontation with Johann. The first significant turning point came during a planned prison incident, a so-called accident orchestrated to test Tae-jung's reactions under extreme pressure. A rival inmate was set to ambush him in a narrow corridor. Tae-jung anticipated the attack, using the environment to his advantage, deflecting aggression and turning the situation to his favor without escalating violence. His calm and precise response surprised both his adversaries and the observing guards. Johann, watching from afar, noted this with approval. Tae-jung had demonstrated not just survival but strategic thinking under duress. Tae-jung began to understand that Johann's manipulations extended far beyond prison walls. The evidence, the trials, the witnesses, and even the societal perception of his guilt had been controlled to perfection. Johann's power was systemic, subtle, and nearly invisible, a web woven with skill and precision. To defeat such a figure required not only mental acuity, but patience, foresight, and the ability to anticipate moves several steps ahead. Tae-jung's education and strategy became as crucial as his physical endurance, blending insight into human behavior with tactical execution. During this period, Tae-jung also encountered a range of characters who would influence his journey. Some were allies, offering guidance, support, and subtle assistance, often in ways that were initially difficult to discern. Others were adversaries, testing his resolve, loyalty, and decision-making skills. Navigating these relationships became a complex game where trust was earned through observation, testing, and careful judgment. Tae-jung's growth encompassed not only physical and strategic prowess, but also deep psychological insight into human motives, fears, and ambitions. By the midpoint of his incarceration, Tae-jung's transformation was undeniable. He was no longer the ordinary man who dreamed of flowers and quiet mornings. He had become a strategist, a student of human behavior, a master of observation and adaptation. Every challenge, every provocation, every test had honed him, preparing him for the confrontation that would define his life. The opportunity arose when Johann orchestrated a more complex psychological test, a scenario in which Tae-jung was placed in a simulated network of power struggles, deception, and moral dilemmas. Each decision had consequences, and each choice revealed character and strategy. Tae-jung navigated this intricate web, applying every lesson learned, analyzing every opponent's move, and manipulating outcomes to his advantage. Johann, observing the unfolding events, recognized that Tae-jung was evolving into a formidable adversary, capable of outthinking and adapting to nearly any challenge. This phase marked the shift from survival to proactive strategy. Tae-jung began to plan not merely for defense, but for the eventual dismantling of Johann's manipulative structures. He studied Johann's patterns, identified vulnerabilities, and prepared a series of strategic actions designed to expose the truth of his imprisonment and undermine Johann's influence. His patience, foresight, and accumulated knowledge converged into a coherent strategy, balancing caution with calculated risk. Every encounter outside the immediate conflict with Johann became a potential opportunity or threat. Allies could be leveraged, adversaries neutralized, and information gathered. Tae-jung's ability to influence perception and manipulate outcomes subtly became essential. His transformation was complete. The ordinary man had become a calculated force, operating with insight, precision, and unbreakable resolve. As the final episodes approached, the confrontation with Johann reached its climax. Every scheme, manipulation, and psychological trap Johann had set was met with careful countermeasures. Tae-jung exploited vulnerabilities in Johann's control, revealed hidden truths, and strategically dismantled the networks that had perpetuated his suffering. The battle was not one of brute force, but of intellect, psychology, and relentless focus. Tae-jung's actions demonstrated mastery over both the physical and cognitive landscapes of his world. The resolution was profound. Tae-jung restored his innocence, revealed Johann's manipulations, and dismantled the systems of control that had ensnared him. Victory was achieved not through impulsive aggression, but through strategy, insight, and relentless perseverance. Tae-jung emerged transformed, no longer the ordinary man of quiet dreams, but a figure of calculated strength, resilience, and strategic intelligence. His journey from victimhood to mastery illustrated the profound power of human adaptability and determination. In the end, Taejung stood as a figure reshaped by experience, forged by adversity, and awakened to the power of patience, insight, and strategy. His journey illustrated the profound effects of betrayal, the necessity of resilience, and the transformation that occurs when ordinary individuals confront extraordinary challenges. From innocence to mastery, from vulnerability to control, Taejung's path was one continuous, gripping story of suspense, intellect, and relentless human will. The story of the manipulated is not merely a tale of revenge or justice. It is a study of human psychology, a portrait of resilience, and a chronicle of transformation. Taejung's own life, once ordinary and peaceful, had been reshaped into something extraordinary, a testament to the power of intellect, patience, and unyielding determination. Every choice, every observation, every challenge he had faced had contributed to his ultimate mastery over the forces that sought to destroy him. He had become not just a survivor, but a strategist, a thinker, and a man fully in command of his destiny.